Okay, this is DeeAnn and Cathy again with this is DeeAnn with Connecting the Dots. This is part 2 of Willie Whitefeather Wisdom. And I'm going to begin sharing the screen again. Okay, so I'm going to tell a little bit of a story. I'll leave it on this one here. Today, the Great Turtle Island, remember we said that's Earth, is shaking people awake. So what does that sound like, Cathy?
There's just a lot of natural disasters going on, earthquakes.
Some people say we're in the Great Awakening, right?
Yes.
Yep. And then here's something he's talking about the wars, and he said kids are expendable. So the world leaders are teaching grown-ups. They teach them to fear the enemy more than they love their kids. You see anything like that going on in the world?
Yes.
I think that's going on too. It says the fears of the grown-ups are dumped onto you kids. Your young life, you are told, be careful, look out, use caution. Then when you're 17, you're drafted and they give you a gun to kill the enemy across the border, but don't kill. It will come back to you. Here's how it works. When President Reagan said on the TV, I don't know the date, but there was a half moon the night the Soviets shot down a plane 007 with a missile. Then the full moon following that, the Soviet Navy missile base blew up, and because a missile went off. Well, grandkids, there are no accidents. All things come back full circle. To quote Chief Seattle, all things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons of the earth. Man did not weave the web of life. He is merely a strand in it. Whatever he does to the web, he does to himself. So he talks quite a bit about moon cycles. And I'm not going to go into every word he reads here, but he says a half moon is represented by the letter D. And a full moon, they draw with a circle. And VE Day was called Victory in Europe. Remember VE Day after the war? Or it's also referred to as the Victorian era. He said back then they only knew silver and gold. So half moon is cause and full moon is effect. So this is kind of how Native Americans look at things. They look at things in terms of moons and dates and patterns. But if you put it all together, D-O-V-E, it actually spells dove. That's why I had the slides earlier about doves. So there's some other things here. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. But let's go with the ones I have on the screen. So he's talking about barcodes, like, when you go in the self-checkout line and you got to find the barcode and scan it. That's the very bar that he's referring to. So this is a page from one of his books. So that he says the barcode to them is like a bear has scratched something. That's what they would see, as a bunch of scratch marks like that. And he scratches all our groceries, because the pilgrims call them a bear. They called the bear a bar. Remember, people would say, I'm going to go get me a bar. And they'd say it like that. See, because bears like to sharpen their claws before they kill. Because if they have dull claws, they're not going to get any food. So how to track a bear. The bear goes into hibernation before winter sets in, and he gorges himself with food. So the Congress of the US sent billions of dollars to the Wall Street stock market called the bear market. And the bear needed a place to hold up so he could bring in all his cubs from foreign countries like Russia and China. So the first bank to begin taking away homes was Bear Stearns. Roar, a stern bear. A bear will range around in a close circle after making a kill, like a killing on Wall Street, and he'll cover up his kill, like a deer or an elk, with brush, sticks, and leaves, so no other animals can get to the kill. So the bear needs a satellite in space to transfer funds to all his cubs in foreign banks. Get it? So the bears collided in space. It's because the CNN reported a Russian satellite crashed into the bank satellite. So this is how he sees things. He'll see that this is a normal characteristic of a bear, for example. And then there's other episodes here. He's kind of getting into cause and effect. He's still there, half moons and whole moons and stuff. But I'm going to shorten this and tell the story a little bit, a side story that's in one of the other chapters where he talked about the bombing of Kuwait. So that was like a long time ago. But he says the Earth has like a natural balance, and if you don't heed her warnings, she will correct things. So when they knew when I say they, I mean the Native Americans saw the bombing going on in Kuwait, they were like, oh, that's not going to be good. So that's kind of what we're getting into here. So January 4th, 1994, China exploded a nuclear bomb. Then January 18th, 1994, there was a great quake in Los Angeles. So this to him is the earth equalizing things. And he also gets very specific and goes into ley lines. So a lot of times you can trace it on a globe and say, well, this happened at this point, spin the globe around to the opposite in equal point, and that's where the next event happens. And he talked about the bombing in Kuwait, which was later followed by Mount St. Helens erupting. And that's just how the earth is going to correct things. And then he also ties it to the moon. So, that's kind of an example here. He also talks of as above, so below. And that's a concept that we've heard a lot of lately. And he talks about some submarines colliding here. He says, in all of the great vastness of the ocean, two submarines collided. The BBC News, February 6th through the 16th of 2009, reported that the HMS Vanguard and France's Le Triomphant collided. So think of fire above and water below. So the sun was the fire and the rain was the water together, and they make a rainbow. But peace comes to man when he sees coincidences. And there's the bear saying, huh? So long ago, there was a plan from the stars down. Did you see the night sky on the 1st of December 2008? Venus and Jupiter and the crescent moon formed a smile to kids on everybody on the earth. So there's kind of some neat stuff there. So I'm not going to read through every single thing because this can get rather long. But basically, that's how they look at things, as they look at it in terms of cause and effect, full moon, half moon. Like if something happens, that's half the story. The full thing is when it comes back around. So a lot of these things, there's the Hiroshima and Mount St. Helens happened on that 45th parallel. And then on the 33rd parallel, there's been a lot of events. The Kennedy assassin, the Georgia Guidestones, they've been destroyed recently. The Tower of Babel's on the 33rd parallel, and Roswell, New Mexico, there was that famous crash of a UFO in 1937. Phoenix, where Cathy and I have spent a lot of time, the Phoenix lights were seen. That's the 33rd parallel. And there was even a weird battle in Los Angeles, California, where way back, where the military were trying to shoot down UFOs, supposedly. So if you were to look at the 33rd parallel, that would be this red line. And then Pennsylvania, we're actually on the 40th parallel. So I'm near to there, I'm near to Pittsburgh. And so there's other things that have happened on that parallel. But I wanted to get into the Hopi prophecies because, that's kind of one of my interests in Native American, was from having that roommate, Terry. She was half Hopi and half Navajo. And I wanted to read this to you. It was written in 1986, and it was presented at the Continent. Oh, I can't read it. Indigenous Council. It's entitled, "We Are the Ones They Spoke of Long Ago," or the Hopi elders saw it all coming. So in the beginning of each cycle of time, the Great Spirit comes down through a messenger. He makes a strong appearance upon the earth, and we're coming to the end of a cycle now. So when you think about a messenger coming down, what does that make you think of, Cathy?
A messenger coming down. Well, from reading the Keys of Enoch, it's the Watchers. It's the fallen angels. I've got a lot of things twirling around in my head of what it could be. Aliens.
Or even like maybe when Jesus came, that was probably the beginning of a great cycle, right?
Yeah.
And then it says the Hopis in their prophecies say there will be a religion that comes at the end of the age. The people of this religion are known as Baha-Umi. So the people of Baha means literally people of light and glory, followers of light. So what do we sometimes call ourselves, Cathy? Light workers?
Light work.
We feel like we might be light workers. So here's something very interesting. We've been waiting for these people a long time. They will bring a teaching that will unite the earth. And that's part of why I would even consider doing a YouTube video, is to maybe bring some concepts out that will make people think. So for thousands of years, the Hopis have been telling their children and their children's children about the people that will live at this time. And now it is us. We are the ones they spoke of long ago. So this was written in 1986, but how true does it seem for today?
Very true.
So they say to be allowed to come into creation and live upon the earth at this time is a great honor in the cycle of time, from the beginning to the end, that this time we're at now, the time that will change and purify all things. They say this is the hardest time to live, but it's also the greatest honor to be allowed to live and see this. What's your thoughts on that, Cathy?
This is all the same that I'm reading about. The Palladians are saying the same thing. Reading, I think it's Bringers of the Dawn.
Wow. And then it says, and now things are going to speed up. Things are going to happen really fast. Time is going to go so fast. The more we share the message, the more we will cushion the shaking of the earth. And this will make it easier for ourselves and others. We will survive it. We will live through it. It is a time to awake, to embrace this time, and to learn everything you can about the teachings and writings. It is this time to arise and awake and go forth. And I know not too long ago, I had a vision and a dream. And every time I turned around, the scene was changing. I mean, so rapidly. And I thought, oh my gosh, the main thing that I took from this dream was just rapid change. I mean, I went on a walk and I came back and the houses had there was houses where there were none, and I went into a building and I turned around and all of a sudden there was drop clouds and they were repainting, and I came out into a living room and they were taking down Christmas decorations and putting up Easter ones. It was like, it went that fast. Everything in the dream went that way. And I thought, oh, wow, we're probably going to see a time that speeds up. And then I found this. So it seems to confirm what I was dreaming. Any other thoughts, Cathy?
Well, timelines are converging, and yes, time is speeding up. And I noticed that too.
Wow.
Things are better. Things are going to get better.
So now I'm going to go into the Hopi prophecies. So the Hopis are believed to be like keepers of some of the knowledge of our planet, along with Aborigines, Tibetans. I know there's some tablets they talk about, that there was 4 sets of tablets. And I know that there's like an Ethiopian group that had some tablets, but there was a Native American group that had some too. And then of course we think of tablets, I think of like the 10 Commandments, but there's supposed to be 4 sets of tablets and I'm not quite sure.
Wonder if the emerald tablets are part of that.
I think the emerald tablets are, maybe that's the 4th one, but I definitely think it could be like that. So, so here's some of their very interesting prophecies. So they had, this would be their medicine man and what have you. Looking into the future, they saw the coming of white-skinned man that will strike their enemies. They took the land that was not theirs and struck their enemies. Now, to me, that's the settlers coming across the United States. But there's that concept that Willie was talking about, that they didn't believe that anyone owned the land. It was like our wonderful privilege to live on the land because the Creator provided it for us. But the white man views it differently. They have to have titles and deeds and believe that they own it. So their lands would see spinning wheels with voices, which were probably covered wagons back then. The Indians saw these covered wagons and the families in these wagons crossing the prairies. This was a shock to the Indians. And of course, they saw that they were also killing the buffalo as they went along. So, this is how long, these are signs that they've been watching. How long ago was the covered wagons? I know I had ancestors that left Pennsylvania and went over the Oregon Trail and ended up, settling in Seattle, Washington, where my mom was born. But how long ago was that? Several generations back. And then they said a strange beast like a buffalo with great horns would overrun the land in numbers and take the place of the buffalo. To me, this is the longhorn cattle. So it said the land would also be crossed by snakes of iron, railroads and trains. That meant that the white man was taking over the land even more than the covered wagons. The land shall be crisscrossed by a giant spider web, the electrical power lines, and then the phone lines, and then the internet. I think we could think of all of them to be like spider webs, but it's interesting that we call the internet the World Wide Web, right? That's what WWW stands for. Yes. Any thoughts here, Kath?
I don't know where I read this, but I just read something recently that the Indians felt sorry for the white men because they had lost their way, that long time ago, their land was taken away from them and they lost their way because they used to live the way that the Indians did. And I thought that to be very interesting and fits right along with, what we're seeing here.
It certainly does tie in. Okay, so also they would see rivers of stone that make pictures pictures in the sun. So if you've ever looked at a road on a hot day, because we spent a lot of time in Arizona and grew up there, you'll definitely see it. You'll see though, it looks like the roads.
Mirage.
Yeah, a mirage. You'll see the heat. It's caused by the heat, but I mean, they saw that. So that would have been, for them to have a vision of that long before we had asphalt and paved roads, it's pretty incredible. Yeah. And then when the sea turns back and many living things die, and that started to happen, we had oil spills, the Exxon Valdez and other things. But, even here, there was a really bad storm that hit, Florida, and there was people out there filming. The water had receded back so far. So we've got different things happening. We've got rivers drying, like the Nile, and different things that are really, really there's things happening with the water. Can you think of any other examples, Kathy?
Not off the top of my head, but just definitely there's a lot of different kind of strange things with weather that have been going on.
Yeah.
For years. Think about the firestorms that we had, in California that were unprecedented.
Well, and how about the fact that there was snow in Huntington Beach this week?
Oh yeah, we got like a cross between rain and hail. And my girlfriend said it was like snow at her house. But yeah, we had snow in the hills here in Southern California that we don't usually have.
I bet not. Something's going on with all that. Some people even say possible weather manipulation, but okay. So many young people will begin to wear their hair long and dress like indigenous people and come to join their nations to learn their ways and wisdom. So some people would say that was probably the hippie generation, because they were doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Were your parents hippies at all?
They were not.
Mine weren't either, but they were around it though. Okay, then they would see a blue star in the heavens that will fall with a great crash. After that, the ceremonies of the Hopi people will cease. It turns out that US and Russian satellites, collided in space, creating a blue streak as they came down. That was the beginning of wars, where the white man would attack other parts of the world, where the first wisdom came from. So, I mean, it's pretty common for people to think that the first wisdom came out of the Middle East. And then, of course, we started attacking the Middle East, and the people who make those wars will bring disease and a great dying on the land, which we are seeing right now. And we could say the scandemic. So those who lift up their life and who have faith and who understand what these prophecies mean will be safe and protected. So I'm glad they saw that, which I'm now going to segue into some other prophecies. These were some that were done by Edgar Casey, because I wanted to kind of look up some that might pertain to this land. And I put this slide in months ago. After I did a workshop, I decided to put the prophecies, into the slideshow. And I'm amazed when I read this now, because he made this prediction in the early 40s. So we're talking excess of 70 years ago. He said that through Russia would come the hope of the world, not through communism or Bolshevism, but through true freedom. So, I mean, Russia's very pivotal in the news. Some people view, I don't want to talk about it too much, but there could be more than one way to look at it. I don't know on the news if we're really getting the truth of what's going on over there. In my opinion, there could be something completely different. It might even be diabolically opposed to what we're being told on the news. And I think at some point we're gonna find out the truth. But it says it will take many years to crystallize, yet out of Russia comes the hope of the world and the overcoming of global domination. So we got to be kind of careful there, but any careful thoughts there, Cathy?
No, you've covered it very well. That's very interesting that Edgar Casey kind of foresaw.
And also Russia's called the bear. So that
Yes.
that ties into, all the bear, and the bear has been, tied to the barcode, which is, you could say maybe capitalism. So there's a lot tied in there, but, don't poke that sleeping bear. You don't know what you're going to get. And I'm going to play this here.
Future, we've heard about this for a long time. There's going to be earthquakes. The natives, we call it purifying. We say the earth is going to shake and she's going to do different things. Every 160,000 years, the earth has to move. She has to rebirth, so she has to change, and because she's spinning a certain way, and she got to adjust herself because everything gets top heavy or different. So the Earth Mother is preparing to rebirth the whole world, a new Eden, a new creation. Lots of different places on Earth. Some of it's going to sink, where other parts of the Earth are going to come up. And people are seeing this. People are getting lots of images and that shown to them. And the universe does this. They give you 3 warnings. Like, they don't just do one thing. It's like, oh, there's going to be earthquake here, and everybody goes, hey, there's going to be earthquake, and then it's over. It's like, you get 3 warnings. It's like they give you one this way, and then they'll give you another one and another one. As that happens, you get premonitions. You'll just know, I need to be out of here. Mm-hmm. And you'll just, for whatever reasons, you go some other place, something will happen. You're like, I'm so glad I listened inside. But some other people are just in denial and they don't want to hear that. Mm-hmm. But the earth changes are something that's happening. She's rebirthing.
So I'm gonna stop with that there. But I follow him. He's great. Have you ever heard him on anywhere, Cathy?
No, I'm not familiar with him.
But I thought it was very interesting, because we're kind of tying in the way Native Americans view things, and see some of the stuff when I read it in Willie Whitefeather's, there's things that have happened. They say the earth has had pole shifts, and it's just that great shaking. If there's a lot of things out of balance, at some point the earth is going to put it in balance, but it's going to be kind of chaotic during the process, because it could look like flooding and earthquakes and water receding and water flooding and high becoming low and low becoming high. So I think the bottom line is, if you go back to the Hopi prophecies, we're going to make it through. But there's a lot of things out of balance, in our world. And I like this: by awakening the Native American teachings, you come to the realization that the earth is not something simply that you build upon and walk upon and drive upon and take for granted. It's a living entity. It has a consciousness. And guess who said that? Edgar Casey. So that's something we need to think of. And I don't think that we get that, worldview on CNN, but that's how they look at things. And I think it gives us alternative ways to look at things. And then one of the books that you ordered, I know, Cathy, was the Bill Cooper's Behold the Pale Horse, because when we got deeper into Willie Whitefeather stuff, he knew Bill Cooper, and he pointed out a lot of different things. But it's just, the storm is upon us right now, but we are going to get to the other side. And this is kind of how Willie would do it. This is actually on the right-hand side. It is a page from Bill Cooper's book. And then, he photocopied it, and then he had, clippings from the newspapers. I think it's interesting that it's a Rothschild that wrote the one article, and he's relating it to the things that Bill Cooper was finding. I mean, there's a lot of things that people have been searching for that are starting to come to the surface and make connections. So I think Willie Whitefeather was probably going down a lot of rabbit holes, even though he didn't know that we would call it that.
Right.
And then, I'll see you your great reset and raise you a great awakening. I love this one. And
that's cool.
Isn't that cool? Yeah. This is a really neat thing. I'm going to try to explain this here. So, the Indian people were rounded up, and I heard David Nino Rodriguez talking about that they shot all these buffalo, the white people did, and none of us really can understand why they did that, because they didn't, it was sort of portrayed like they might have done it for sport or something. But David brought up an interesting point. They may have done that to cut off their food supply, because the buffalo was a main item for many, many, many tribes. There's so many tribes in North America, going up into Canada and everything. So by slaughtering so many buffalo, they cut off their food supply, which made it easier for them to, acquiesce. Because we know there was treaties that they made, and then there's treaties that they broke, as we talked about in the other video. But they viewed it like almost like the Jewish, being locked up. It says that the Cherokees, by our aid, they had this trail of tears. They rounded them up, and they interned them into reservations. I got just blanked on that word. So there was a lot of tears along the way. And I know when I was in Arizona, there was a certain class I took on Native American culture. They did take away their natural food and stuff, and they gave them like what they would give soldiers to eat, but they didn't know that food. So a prime example was coffee beans. They didn't know about coffee at this point. So the women found these things. They look like beans to them. They've dealt with beans before. They're cooking them, and this dark water keeps coming off them, and they keep pouring it off and trying to cook them some more. And it just bleeds more brown water, and they're pouring that off and putting more water cooking. They just couldn't get the beans soft. So these people tried to eat them. They were coffee beans. It's like, no wonder they got sick, and a lot of them did. It was very sad. That's why it's called the Trail of Tears. But it's, from their point of view, they related to what happened to the Jews, where they were rounded up and put in concentration camps. And then there's a lot more things coming out about turtles. Here's some things on, because remember, the earth is the great turtle, and the turtle shells have 13 moons, which represents like 28 days. So this is one way of looking at the earth. Of course, women have 28-day cycles. There are some people that think that maybe we shouldn't have 30-day, 31-day, or, that we should have all our months be 28 days long, and even a 13th month. And you can speak to that 13th month. I think you told me about it first, Cathy.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, but it makes more sense to have 13 months, each being 28 days. And then what is it, April 1st? It's not April Fool's, but that is the day of change.
It could
It's
be
like It's a
Lewis
neutral,
Arms thinks it's the new year.
yeah, it's the beginning of the new year. It's a neutral day, and yeah, reset the clock. And
So it's interesting that the Native Americans think that the turtle is like, this, and many turtles have this pattern. This is not a random thing. This I could show you lots of pictures of turtles with this exact same pattern.
right. And also what the Hawaiians believe of the turtle is what brought in humanity also.
Beautiful. See, I like finding these commonalities, but the Native Americans, and it does come out in Willie Whitefeather stuff, they see things in terms of your children and your children's children and your children's children. And if you make decisions considering what's going to happen 7 generations down the road, then that's where you make your best decisions. And then, here's a quote from Crazy Horse where he's it's not just in one tribe. It's not just Hopis. It's not just Cherokees. Many of the tribes have these feelings. And then here's a blue Kachina star, because remember they're talking about a blue star. It could have been those satellites colliding, but since then, this could be it too. The blue Kachina spirit will indicate the beginning of the new world. And here's kind of an up close, telescope type picture of it. Some people say it's Stargate Sirius. And then I thought this was super interesting. There's a lot of things with the pyramids that seem to line up with the constellation Orion. And Second Mesa, which is almost dead set in the middle, that's where my roommate was from, Terry. She was from Second Mesa, Arizona. But look how they're set up. It matches perfectly with the Orion constellation. So
Wow.
it really makes you wonder. So this is why my presentation on Willie Whitefeather grows over time, because I find out these cool things. And then these are, if somebody wants to stop the screen and write down some really cool videos on YouTube about the Hopi prophecies, if you like this and you want to watch more. This is a drawing that Willie did for us, talking about gold and silver. There's a lot of people saying we might be, we've got a problem with our financial system because we're not backed by gold and silver. And some people think that silver is going to be even more important than gold. So it's interesting that, he viewed the eagle as silver, and not that gold's bad. It's beautiful. It's a butterfly, but the silver is so much larger. And some more Willie Whitefeather videos. And then you found one recently too, that maybe I'll add to this future presentation. And then this, sometimes in workshops, I get into this alphabet that they had, and kind of decoding some of their stories. There's just some more things we have on there, but I appreciate
A certain book.
Pardon me?
So, or is that from a specific book that he has? Because he has a couple of books out. He has the
this
one for the children. Have you?
I don't know what he ended up calling this, because I don't really have a cover per se. I literally just have it in a notebook, and it's crazy when I found it, because this is a notebook that my mom had it in. It said retirement plan on it. So I almost threw it out. And there's so much great stuff in here. There's so many more pages. I've only just scratched the surface here.
So is that a manuscript that he gave to you? I mean, gave to your.
Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff in here. Yeah, this is what he did. And then periodically, like, he would mail them, updates. I've got, more stuff, dear Nita and Lowell, thought you'd like to have a copy of the enclosed article that a friend sent me. He was constant. I got a whole folder of things.
Oh my God.
Send them like updates and stuff. So he passed away about a year and a half ago. I so wish that he was still here and that we could have him on instead of me.
Right.
That would be awesome.
That would have been awesome, but he's helping you from above.
Well, he would be happy that we were continuing on. And I know my mom and Lowell would be too, because it's going down a generation. There's 7 more to consider. Cathy's got a daughter getting married, so maybe she'll get another generation soon.
Yep.
If Kara will allow. So Any parting thoughts, Kathy? Are you glad we reviewed this again?
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize you had that much information on him. I thought you had a few pages. I do want to, I've watched a lot of the videos that are out there on YouTube. There is a documentary that I ran across that I haven't watched yet that right now you can see that you can get it from Amazon Prime. That's called, see if I can figure, Dance with Destiny. So I want to check that out.
And that's related to
Is it-
Willie Whitefeather.
Yes. Yeah.
So
It's
everybody,
produced by Bruce something. I don't have that in front of me. But you might see that as you're looking at some YouTube. But that was who the producer was.
well, I was trying to
Bruce.
connect some dots in here. I would love to watch that video, but what are some of the connections that you didn't expect that we would make?
The bear with the barcode is interesting. And I mentioned, you were talking about, it's like there's so many connections that I'm drawing blank. What else?